How we portray ourselves through social media, it's all true or it's fake. How much we should allow ourselves follow our passion. Who is journalist today and what is the mission of the journalist? I mean, what's supposed to be. Tim, thank you very much for coming.
Thank you very much for inviting me.
Definitely our pleasure. So if we could start, what is your opinion on social media? Does it go in the good direction?
It's a very broad question. In general, what I can say is that it's changed the way people live and interact on a very drastic scale, and I don't think the world has completely come to terms with it yet. It's facilitated communication in a massive way. The fact that you can easily speak to anyone in the world whenever you want at the click of a button and without even spending a cent, and also looking at what other people are saying, it's facilitated that, and that's a big advance, a big leap forward in communication. It's also put people, I feel, under more pressure, because you know that if you're going to be active on social media, or sometimes even if you're not, the eyes of the public are always going to be on you, and that comes with its own implications in terms of the way people act, in terms of accountability, and in terms of transparency.
I mean, if we're looking through your social medias, I don't think you are the one who is like as everybody else, like posting all the time, doing selfie. Have you ever done selfie?
I've done a few, not in a while though. No. Not in a while. No, I haven't. Yes. I haven't published some in a while. So sometimes I don't necessarily feel the need to just put the face of myself up all the time. I don't necessarily feel
so what is more important for you? Because many people can't even relate to that, because their life would be social media. What is more important for you?
Well, when you say the life is social media, I feel that life is way more than social media, and what people put on social media is what it's not necessarily who they are. It is who they are, but it is the part of who they are that they want the world to see. It's a very curated vision, a very curated image of yourself. Even the fact you see a selfie taken, it could be the 20th selfie that person had taken, and say, okay, this is the one I'm publishing. It's not necessarily like who they are, and it does. It's kind of you. I don't say selling yourself, but portraying yourself to the world. Like this is who I want. This is who I want people to see me as, and carries a lot of responsibility as well, because especially not in terms of selfies, more in terms of then what you write. That's all that has more implications as well.
Yes, I like, because you said that part about like a feeling pressure. But this apply especially for the younger generation, I think. We don't experience that, but I think for them,
but for them even more. I mean, there's a whole generation who don't remember life pre-social media. So for me, I remember Facebook came into being when I was still in school. I was towards the end. That only just started. Nowadays, even though technically social media has age restrictions, they're very loose, right? And children are expected to be on it as well, socially expected to be on it. Yeah. When you think of the pressures of the school ground, the pressure to conform, to show people that you're popular, to align yourself with certain interest groups, that is magnified on a huge scale on social media. And there's also the aspect of it is that it's irreversible as well, so that what you put on social media stays there, and even if you delete it, sometimes you never know who would have taken a screenshot and who could circulate it. There's a huge responsibility over there, and I'm not sure if we're doing enough to like we're just letting it loose among the younger generation, and I know they're fully aware of the consequences, to be honest.
It feels like there is no turning back because, for example, even if you are a parent, imagine you have a child, and from one point you would say, like, I would never allow my children to use that often. But the problem is, they tend to be a bit naughty, they like too energetic in general. And the moment you give them that iPad, they kind of stay still.
Yeah.
So because of that yes, I don't think we can do anything anymore.
And I mean, if everyone is doing it and you're the one who isn't,
Imagine,
then you're going to be. Then there's also a potential argument to be made that you're excluding your child from their peers, from their social circle.
New normality, yes.
Yeah, exactly. And that's not, and then that's not pleasant for the child, right?
Yes.
It's very difficult.
Your input into like the media in Malta, you've been journalist for how many years now?
I'd say 6 years,
Okay.
7 years.
And I think you're doing this very well. I think
Thank you.
you're quite successful. Can you see yourself like doing something else, or this is your life now?
No, I'm very pleased with where I am. And I think there's more to come.
When I see one of your jobs, what kind of left me with the biggest impact from what you do, it's obviously our ex-Prime Minister, Dr. Joseph Muscat. How did you prepare for that? Were you like stressed?
Well, it is obviously something that I had been planning to do for quite a while. Having you have lots of questions to someone who is in charge of the country. Everyone does. So there is this weight of responsibility in terms of choosing what to ask him and how. So yeah, you obviously do need to prepare. You can't go to an interview like that
Yes.
without doing some research, without saying, okay, these are the questions I need to ask him, and also trying to preempt what he might.
Yes,
what
but
he might
the
then-
more important is because you're not like a regular journalist. You asking these tough questions.
Well, of course. But
This is the difference.
Why should that be a problem, though? Why should that be a difference?
No, because what you see, I think, in general today, like people are not as demanding. They kind of don't look hard enough.
But why do you think that is? Why that people don't ask tough enough questions?
I think because maybe it's like not trendy enough.
Look, at the end of the day, this is a person who was running the country. So I feel I would have I wouldn't have been doing my duty if I didn't ask him tough questions. It's not necessarily a negative insinuation on the man himself, but it's if you want, if there are a lot of things that Joseph Muscat got involved in, and I think the public has a right to know, and I think that journalists play an extremely important role in trying to obtain that information and relaying it to the public. And if it means asking hard questions, then so be it.
Yes. No, well enough. People do have the right to know, yes. For example, if you read in like Times of Malta, you have these comment sections. I think there when people really allow themselves to explode.
Well.
And do you read those comments sometimes?
I don't say I never read them, but I have taken an active decision to read them less often and pay more attention to what people tell me face to face. Because this is something I find quite interesting, that comments often tend to be. You can get into a frame of mind that comments on Facebook or on your site are reflective of what society thinks of your piece of work or of or of you as in general. It's not necessarily the case. It's sort of just those people might think, and then you see people who won't comment necessarily on Facebook, and then you meet them and they tell you face to face, well done for that. I've learned to value that more than the negative comments on Facebook.
A very nice insight. But of course, with your job comes, like, I think more often rather than less would be like you might have this like, kind of negative messages arrive into your inbox as well.
Well, and there are all sorts of messages that arrive to our inboxes. There's positive ones, there's negative ones, there's this inquisitive ones. You know, you have to. At the end of the day, when you're in the public eye, you have to get used. You have to get used to it, but. It's not just don't build necessarily. Don't assume that public perception of what you're doing is, you know, just don't let yourself be conditioned just by a few messages on Facebook or by a few comments that you receive. It's just the opinions of it could be the opinions of just a few people. Fair enough, you know, you can add them, but it's not necessarily the what people think, what everyone thinks.
Yes. But from another perspective, it's like, because what is sad to see, but I think people tend to, find it easier to be negative rather than actually appreciate your work.
Well, what I think is rather than that, not necessarily to be negative. I feel that sometimes people are more likely to comment when they disagree with something rather than when they agree with something. And it's not just something that happens in Malta. That's something that I've noticed happening internationally. That if, for example, you read an article and you agree with it, you say, okay, great article, and move on. But if they're saying something that you disagree with on a very emotional level, you're going to leave a comment there. That's and if I haven't conducted any kind of research into this, it's just something that I've sort of noticed when I read, like, for example, global articles on an international paper. There'd be one article, for example, say, you know, it's during the pandemic, one article saying we need to be harder, we need to go into lockdown, and then you get the comments and everyone's like, like your paper is being bought out by the powers that be and whatever. And then you have another article by the same paper advocating for fewer restrictions, and then the comments are wonder of wonders, shame on you, you're not listening to the experts. So again, that's like, which of these comments are correct? Like, why would certain people be drawn out only when there's an article that they disagree with? I think it's more because you're more likely to leave a comment because you want to add more input to the discussion rather than, well done, like, I agree with you. And I think it's not necessarily a bad thing, but it's something that we should keep perspective of.
Right. Would you have, within like the journalism world in Malta, someone that you can look up to?
In the journalism world in Malta, somebody that I can look up to?
Yes.
Or
at least like admire someone else's job.
Someone who's currently in the industry?
Yes. Or maybe someone before.
I have there's many people I admire. I admire the people who set up the company. I have great admiration for people like Chris Perigine, who set up Lovin Malta. Obviously, he's moved on. Great admiration as well for David Grech, who also was involved from the start and is now the CEO. There's a lot of talent in Malta, and we shouldn't play ourselves short. There are a lot of very talented people in the journalism industry.
Fantastic. What would you say is your best part of your work?
The best part of the work is the impact it can leave on people's lives in a very positive way. That when you can, journalism can really be a force for positive change. So this is why do they call it the fourth estate? The three estates, the legislators in parliament who make the laws, the government who executes, the judiciary who rules, and then there's the media who has to inform, whose duty is to inform the public how the system is working, which parts of it are working and which ones aren't, which people are falling through the cracks, and what injustices are happening, and what needs to be changed. And it plays a very crucial role here, and it does have a positive. You do notice that you can write something, expose something, and it can reach the ears it's meant to reach, and cause a positive change in someone's life. And that's very encouraging, when you realize that your own work has led to a net positive result in another human being's life.
Like maybe you can see it among your friends, or just in general, if you have other people's stories. Do you think people more likely tend to stick up to the passion and keep on following those passions?
Ah, yeah. Good question. I feel that it's. I mean, when we're younger, there's everyone loves talking about following your dreams and following your passions.
Exactly.
And
When is the line? How does
and
it stop so often?
and making it happen, and then when you're old and you realize like that certain. Not just responsibilities, but also social pressures as well start to settle, and you might start. First of all, your passions might change. Let's not forget it, that you don't. Just because there's something that you're passionate about in the past doesn't mean you you have to be eternally passionate for. There's also, unfortunately, but true, the fact that when there are more responsibilities in life, so perhaps there mightn't be more time, and time is fleeting, right?
Yes.
You can keep yourself extremely busy, especially in this day and age. Now there's with the internet and mobile phones and constant connection, constant opportunities for you to spend your time and your attention on. It can be very easy, sorry, to let a certain passion slip past your grip. And then I remember, like in a year or two's time, like, wow, like, what's I had this chance, and I miss it. So I think focus is something that's very important, and that perhaps is lacking a bit.
Yes. Okay. So your advice for that is to focus pretty much.
Yes, to first of all to realize what your passion is. To look into yourself and say, okay, this is, and don't try to play games with yourself. Don't try and negotiate and bargain stuff with yourself. Just look deep into your heart and say, this is what I love, and this is what I want. And then yeah, focus and try to go for it. Because when they say like everyone can fulfill their dreams and fulfill their passions, I believe that. But then you have to ask yourself why not everyone does, and that's because so many other things get in the way, and it's only the people who are focused and also courageous enough to take the leap as well. That's also another important aspect, because sometimes it can be difficult perhaps to get out of something you're used to step out of your comfort zone, and that's, I think, gets harder with age as well.
Exactly. I think we started a little bit before discussing the aspect of, do you think is any escape from being under the spotlight at some point and then you disappear forever?
Yeah, I do see this sometimes, that it's when somebody loses their star power, or their star power starts to wane a bit. And it can cause an impact. Being in the limelight has a certain buzz to it. Let's be honest. The fact that people can know who you are and can come up to you, as what was my theory basically. Not necessarily speaking out of personal experience, but I can imagine that there is an element of that buzz, and then once it starts to wane, you start perhaps perhaps forced to think about yourself and who you really are even more, rather than you identify yourself with the love from the crowds. And when that fades away, you're left with yourself, and it becomes a bit more difficult.
If I ask you, like, because I think people within whatever they do, I think they try to have something with it. Like, what is your mission with what you do?
No, look, I like stimulating discussions and getting and getting people to think. That is a fact, and also and also exploring it myself as well. Like you can't, I'm not going to pretend that I'm an expert of everything and that I'm and that I understand everything, because I don't. No one does. The world is an extremely complex place, and you only realize, and I think as time goes by, you realize even more how complex it is and how complex human beings are. I'd say my mission would be to get to try and stimulate these discussions, and to bring certain things to light as well.
Tim, for the note of finishing, like imagine this is your last opportunity to be like alive on social media, and this is the message from you. What would be that message?
My last message, like if I, all right, like to the nation.
Yes, to the
world,
nation,
or
yes.
Whatever. Okay, it's putting me a bit on the spot here. Perhaps enjoy life as much as possible. Keep yourself open. Don't be intransigent. Explore as many different realities as possible, and to try and understand the world better, because the world is a beautiful place. The more you understand of it, I think the more fascinating it becomes. So don't just necessarily stay within your cocoon, and without exploring it further.
Yes, so that is nice. Very a bit romantic thought.
Yes.
It's very nice. Tim, that was a pleasure chatting with you. Thank you very much for coming for the podcast.
Thank you so much.
So we can be reassured that much more stuff coming from you.
Yes. I have plans for the future in that sense. Yes.
Perfect. Thank you very much.
Thank you.